Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Session 26. Yes, 26. That's good. We're moving along where there are numbers of little consequence, and it's just the next one, and I'm keeping the appointment, and that's where we're at. And I am improving vis-a-vis my ankle injury. I'm in PT and trying to see some light at the end of the tunnel there, but also having to reconfigure the idea of being well enough to, do some of the less desirable parts of my life, whereas being laid out, it was pretty much a one-track mind. And what I mean is, it's a fine line, I think, between kicking yourself in the ass when you're hurt and part of that hustle culture that permeates all of our lives. The idea that I've been down for a month, I should have, I should have gotten my barber's license, or it's a fine line between being where you at least making some strides other than health. And I guess that's the question, I guess obsessed people get a lot done. And I've been obsessive, and I've also been down. So, I'm still in the building phase of building back strength, but also building to the point where, Dave Grohl has performed with a broken ankle. He broke his ankle on stage, and then subsequently had to tour from a seated position. And that's awesome, and that's a great folklore tale to add to the great Dave Grohl mystique, and and he also gets a lot of energy and from the crowd, but he is Dave Grohl, and I have yet to make the thing I do that the injury would have to accommodate that, or I could work my injury into my life as a series regular on a TV show. They'd find a way to keep me seated, or they'd put it in the storyline, but that hasn't occurred yet. So what do you do when you're hurt and you're still in pursuit mode? And this is where all the personal disciplines that you should be consistent with, i.e. journaling, morning ritual, media diet, friends, family, all that has to be locked in so that when you're down, you don't lose a step, or you lose a step because you're hurt. And so I guess my version of still delivering the goods like Dave Grohl is I auditioned for voiceover with a boot, and I'm doing this with a boot, which was designed to be a seated exercise anyway. But the idea that if you've, been out of your day job for a while, and when you get back, there is that notion of what you do while you were down. And it's like, I healed. And, we are so grind culture in America, or here in my efforts, or in the world, maybe it's permeated. But if you could weather the storm and not go destitute, then maybe healing is enough. And maybe that's going to be the lesson I take from this, is like, I got quiet. I got still. I mean, it's almost as if God or the universe said to me, slow the fuck down, dude. Slow the fuck down. You're going to pop. And my ankle literally did. And so that may be what I'm learning, and finding a pace of life that I can operate at moving forward, and what that looks like. And, if I get a diagnosis that it's another 30 days, yeah, I guess that's more than enough time for a lot of people to pivot. And I got to think about that. But, I either get back to the way things were with a new appreciation, or I get back to the way things were with a new desire to end that way of living, or I make the pivot before I have to, get used to the way things were and make things the way they are now. And that is where possibility and anxiety can sort of run a parallel track. So that's where I'm at. But I have been, turning up the heat on making sure that I had minimum in the next 30 days, find a place, which is not the hard part, but an audience might be, find a place to read my script and read it out loud and get momentum back on for, I wouldn't want to perform this yet because of my ankle, and I want to be physically fit by the time I go into a production or into a series of readings. And because your body as a performer is pretty much it. So, and that's the reminder also. The cool thing with my physical therapist is he's a football player and a kind of an athlete, and I'm trying to stay motivated by saying, the silver lining is going to be actually my off leg is going to get stronger. I'm going to use the silver lining of I'm going to be 2 days a week minimum PT and then home exercises. So this is going to kickstart me getting back to a serious fitness regime, which I was doing a lot of stretching and walking, but those were a little bit more placid, and I may have to dedicate more of that sort of gym exercise, isometric kind of weight bearing exercise again. And this could be the springboard for that. And, that's where the silver lining is. And also because of the group dynamics of the physical therapy place, it's things I notice when I'm there that are things I want to avoid. Every person, you wait in the lobby and each person has their own physical therapist, and they come out and they say, how you doing today? And every single person is like, I'm a little sore. It just, they don't even understand that person, that physical therapist is coming to help you. And maybe if you took a little like, I'm doing great, I'm so glad to see you, let's go and do this. So that's one of the adjustments I'm making is I can let him know the scale of 1 to 10 pain on certain exercises, and I can give him input as to what's happening while I'm doing the exercise. But if I can get there, which is already a lot more than most people, I can get there and I can make the appointment, keep the appointment. I'm going to give some of that old school jock rah-rah to you and vice versa. And I don't know, I think that's the way to go. And it's definitely the way I want to be, which is to use this as a springboard and to inevitably have this be a blessing in disguise. But, you hurt, but I'm just not taking that passive, the guy's not a shrink. He's a physical therapist. So, and I think, some of that energy is wasteful. So I'm going in there fired up. He's even telling me to scale back because he read the doctor's notes and I think, had to temper what he was going to do with me because I'm still in the phase of healing, not the phase of like, let's start strengthening the shit out of this. And what a blessing it is to have an appointment and a blessing to have a professional waiting on the other end. That's the hard part about being a artist on spec, is that you have to be self-determined and self-driven. And this is inevitably why people get into classes and things to keep appointments. But I've waned on my discipline to keep appointments with myself. So that's why this Saturday thing, whatever this is, thank you for the few and mighty that do pay attention to it. But the desk session has got to be kept because I have to have some tent poles to keep my appointment with myself and my side of the street clean. And so I had a thought. Last week I kind of shared a meltdown, and I vacillated about using a clip from that for social media to promote Session25 because I was embarrassed enough by that outburst that was recorded that I don't know if I wanted to portray that. And that's part of the canard of social media. The canard of social media is if you're selling authenticity, but you got to sell a made up, filtered, attractive version of authenticity. And I even fell victim to, I didn't want to have a date stamped clip of me losing my shit because my reach on social media is a little bit further than it is here on YouTube or on the desk session. So I would run the risk of of going viral with a negative vibe of myself. And so I've clipped it, and I have it in drafts on Instagram, but I've not pulled the trigger on that. And just energetically and content wise, I was very happy with how Death Session 25 went. And so I don't know if this is self-sabotage that I haven't put my best effort to get people's eyes on Death Session 25, because maybe I know it's a good one and I want to not have it be seen. And I'm using the excuse of losing favor with an anonymous horde of people who don't have an opinion about me, to be honest. So why should I care? And so I am examining that. And I used to joke with my girlfriend that my self-help book was Nobody Cares. So why should you would be my my self-help book. And it was, at the time, it was a joke about the fact that you could see it both ways. And when you're self-pitying, you say nobody cares. And then the so why should you is then you remind yourself that, you know, your pain is not precious and your woes are not unique, and you should venture forth without the need to wallow. And but what are we if we're not good at wallowing? I know I have been, and I probably continue to be, but no longer wish to have that be a setting. You know, the INGs, wallowing, I want to maybe replace those with thriving, and you know, just change my INGs. So thriving, loving, dancing, you know, all those living out loud things that, you know, you can have positive and negative. And so nobody cares, so why should you? So if I show myself or I show my ass on a video, it is self-reporting, and I guess, you know, it may behoove you, depending on where you're going in your life, it may behoove you to keep your powder dry on social media. But I'm not necessarily trying to be an accountant or any kind of public figure, or not public figure, but I don't have standards and practices attached to the way I live, I guess, to the degree that nobody wants to be canceled. But, you know, I'm trying to keep decorum. That is a self-check in most cases, and always has been. And I don't know if that leads to repression, or if that leads to me not flying in the face of things as much as I would like to. So it's an interesting thing, and I'm probably overthinking it because nobody cares. So why should you, or why should I? So, and I always have the clip, and I can put it out at any time, and any publicity toward the desk sessions, getting people to click on a link to this, and this stuff is cached, so it will be there as a compilation. So I will confess, I had an abrupt pause there because a sneeze was coming on, and I now know that you can't just continue like you can on a voice memo. I had to then save that old one, and I'm going to have to combine these, whereas I probably should have just sneezed and edited out the sneeze. But live and learn, make a practical decision. I made a decision on the fly to stop this thing, but I wasn't quite done, although that could have been a cue that my body's saying this one isn't a keeper. But one of the things that is about the calendar that is of very little consequence to important things, but in my world, I guess it once was a really exciting thing for me. Oscars are here. I guess I get more excited now about the SAG Awards because I vote for those and I don't vote for the Oscars. And the production has become overblown, et cetera, et cetera. There's a million reasons why people aren't loving the Oscars these days. And I thought the SAG Awards grinded it out. They just banged out every time they came back from some kind of break. It was an award. It wasn't a lot of fluff, and they just banged it out. I hope that's what they do with the Oscars now. And all the pre-stuff and the fashion stuff is, you know, it's more fun when you're with people to watch. But inevitably, it used to be many moons ago, it was on Mondays, because that was when they would air it. I guess that was a great night to capture most of the country on the network that it aired on. And then it moved to Sunday, and because that became the better night to entrap people to watch these things, because of, you know, the mood from HBO Sundays owning that, and, you know, it's also between football season. So, but I've worked in bars, and I've been at various stages of my life miserable because I had to watch the Oscars while people fawned over these people, and my envy and my woe and my rage and my frustration at the points in my career were at ebbs. And sometimes they're at flows where people have been nice over the years, saying, "You're going to be there next year, bro. I know you." And there are these encouraging people that come in and out of your life. And so it's kind of this wave of, where do you feel you're at? Is there some momentum in your career? Could you see yourself getting an audition, being in one of these? I read for Babylon. It bombed at the box office, but that was an Oscar contender. There were those moments in my life where I was connected, as if I felt very sure that these things were going to happen. I remember the first Oscars after graduating from college. I had booked a commercial, and I was auditioning, and I was like, it felt like I was part of the community, And then the SAG Awards came around, and back in the day, it was all you had to do was show your SAG card at the box office, and you'd get 2 tickets. That was the best time in New York. And then you would call all your friends, and it was kind of a humble brag, because a lot of people had equity cards, but the SAG card, you could get into the movies, and it was a good excuse to, reach out, or a good excuse to call up, see a girl at the, out and about and say, "You want to go see the movie? I got the SAG thing," It was fun. And now it's the screeners, and now it's digital, and now it's kind of the industry is a little bit, we're hoping it's not in the death throes, but we really got to rejuvenate it. And I always said that they really missed an opportunity to, you can't sway the vote, but the idea that any movie other than Top Gun Maverick should have won the big picture that year. It saved theatrical releases, and Oscars have changed where when books were still a viable form of entertainment, books and radio, and when there was a odd sort of nose turned up at television, like there is sort of at the internet or YouTube or things like that, when the nose was turned up and that feature films were high American art, it was the zeitgeist met with the film. And so a popular film could win Best Picture and also be a high quality film. What sort of happened now is that high quality film is considered artsy, and a successful film doesn't often get a nomination. And so I understand why Top Gun Maverick didn't win. It did get nominated, but it would have been a celebration of Hollywood to have that be the best picture of the year. And again, it was up to the people who voted and probably saw. And I can't tell you what did win that year. I just know that that's the movie that broke the pandemic fasting of in theater movies. And what a movie. But I understand. But what I can do is assure you that anyone who's an actor has fantasized about being there minimally, and any actor, whether they want to stay in the theater or have certain stratified goals, everyone's fantasized about being there, and obviously fantasized about making their speech. And so statistically, we won't get that chance, but that shouldn't stop you from thinking about what you'd say. And I think I've written this down over the years. And I've now repurposed it, and it's in my show to a degree. Some of the phraseology, a little bit of the little, and I'm going to sort of scan through it, and I haven't shared anything of the text of my show on this because I'm remiss to do so. But this would be a earlier sort of introductory part of it. And this little snippet was, I think, lifted from a beverage napkin that it was lifted from a beverage napkin, or some paperwork that I've gone through on my desk when I've consolidated and moved from coast to coast. And this was the kind of thing I would have said if I were standing there with a trophy, talking about the road to that utter embarrassment of riches, basically saying I was doing this shit for free for so long. I was doing this shit for pennies. I was willing to do what I didn't want to do this. And I've worked in a restaurant more hours than I ever worked in the theater. And that's a tough fact. And so if I were standing there with the plaque, I'd want to give it that kind of gusto, that this is the road less traveled can be rough, but you get there, right? So that would be my inspirational take on a speech. And so I've had this little chunk, and here's a little bit of it. It's from the show. I won't set it up or anything. It would be sort of just what I might say. And the joke would be, I have a theater degree, which is about as useful as a typewriter repair certificate. But life choices aside, I've been on stage more than 1,000 times. My 10,000 hours are growing mold on the last 10,000 hours, and I'm still on the clock. I've done stand-up in front of a pay toilet in a laundromat, musical theater in a barn, Shakespeare in the park in Florida, which might have been more of a challenge. And I've wanted to do this solo show for so long. I had sideburns when they made a comeback in the 90s. So that would be sort of the chunk of the kind of indignities, but also what's great about the pursuit is the things you would be willing to do to keep the dream alive. And I go back to A Chorus Line, which is a musical of the 70s that was once the longest running show on Broadway. And the very schmaltzy song that still gets me in the throat is What I Did for Love. And that's basically the hope, is somehow this industry will bounce. Somehow it'll stay there enough for me to finally get my moment in the sun. But What I Did for Love, and it's that song that talks about I can't forget and I won't regret what I did for love. And so I would encourage anybody who gets a chance to hold one of those trophies to remember and hopefully come from that place of, this is what I did for love and I won't regret it. And I hope that ethos is baked in the cake for a lot of us. Otherwise, why are we doing it? So anyway, that's the second half of Session26. Thanks for listening. Carl D. giving you the tiny snippet of We Carry the Light as I am forcing my hand to try to make this dream come true. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. Peace.